The version of you they fear doesn't exist yet. Not because you're weak, not because you're incapable, but because you're still giving your attention to things that stopped deserving it a long time ago. You still explain yourself to people who already decided how they feel about you. You still hope to be understood by people who have no intention of understanding you, and you still waste energy trying to be clear to those who benefit from your confusion. That's the trap. Because as long as you operate like that, the strongest version of you stays locked away. And here's the truth. The version they fear isn't louder. It isn't aggressive. It doesn't win arguments. It's the version that no longer needs approval to move, no longer asks for permission, no longer explains its existence. And the moment that version shows up, the people who used to control your emotions suddenly lose access to you. Most people think power comes from controlling others. That's not true. Real power begins when nobody can pull a reaction out of you anymore. Think about it. How many of your decisions are actually yours? And how many are just attempts to avoid someone else's reaction? Avoiding judgment, avoiding rejection, avoiding discomfort with people you were never aligned with in the first place. Slowly, without noticing it, you build a personality designed for approval. You don't speak freely anymore, you filter. You don't act naturally anymore, you adjust. And that's where control begins. Because a filtered person becomes predictable, and a predictable person becomes easy to influence. Once someone understands your emotional pattern, they don't need control. They just apply pressure, a silence, a tone shift, a look of disappointment. And suddenly you're no longer choosing, you're reacting. Most people around you already know this version of you. They know what makes you explain yourself. They know what makes you overthink. They know how long it takes before you doubt yourself. But there's another version of you they cannot read. When silence doesn't trigger anxiety, when misunderstanding doesn't pull you into defense, when pressure doesn't force explanation, that's where everything changes. Because now you're no longer operating on patterns. And people cannot control what they cannot predict. Control was never about strength. It was about repetition. And once repetition breaks, there's nothing left to grab onto. Just awareness. Just distance. Just you no longer reactive. Most people misunderstand strength entirely. They think it's confidence. They think it's speaking louder, standing taller, being more certain. But real strength is quieter. It's the ability to stay stable without needing validation to confirm who you are. Because the moment your peace depends on approval, you stop living on your terms. You start adjusting yourself constantly, carefully, quietly, repeatedly. You soften your truth so no one feels uncomfortable. You filter your words so no one misreads you. You edit your behavior to stay acceptable everywhere you go. And the most dangerous part? You don't notice when it starts. Because it doesn't feel like self-betrayal. It feels like maturity. But slowly, something shifts. Your decisions stop coming from you. They start coming from imagined reactions. The need to be understood looks harmless on the surface. It feels like communication. It feels like honesty. But underneath, it becomes dependence. Now every reaction matters. Every opinion carries weight. Every delay feels like rejection. Every disagreement feels like danger. And without realizing it, you begin outsourcing your emotional stability to people who were never responsible for holding it. That's how people stay stuck. Not because they lack intelligence, but because every step forward is filtered through other people's reactions. They explain too much. They justify too much. They dilute their direction until it becomes socially safe. And in that process, momentum dies. The version of you they fear is not ruthless. It is not cold. It is not emotionless. It is disciplined. It is aware. It is selective. Selective with energy. Selective with access. Selective with reaction. It understands something most people don't. Attention is currency. And every reaction is a transaction, so it stops paying for everything that tries to provoke it. Criticism, insults, misunderstandings, noise. Not because it can't respond, but because it understands the cost. It no longer fights battles designed to drain it. It no longer explains itself to minds already decided. It no longer performs for approval it doesn't need. And slowly, something shifts. Less reaction, more direction. Less emotion, more control. Less noise, more clarity. Until a new version emerges. Calm in misunderstanding. Steady under pressure. Unmoved by approval. A version that doesn't chase respect, because it no longer leaks it. Then something subtle begins to change. The moment you stop over-explaining, people notice. The moment you stop seeking agreement, your presence shifts. The moment you stop tolerating what once broke you, you become harder to read. Not colder, not aggressive, just no longer emotionally available in the same way. And that's where resistance begins. People don't react to your growth. They react to your unpredictability. Suddenly you're different. Suddenly you're cold. Suddenly you've changed. But what they really mean is, you stopped being who they were comfortable with. Because some people were never attached to your growth. They were attached to your predictability. And when predictability disappears, their comfort disappears with it. One day, people will notice something has changed. Not because you announced it, not because you explained it, not because you tried to prove anything, but because you stopped reacting the way you used to. You no longer rush to respond to everything. You no longer get pulled into every opinion. You no longer carry people's judgments in your mind. At first, it looks like distance. But it's not distance. It's discipline. You pause before you speak, not to appear wise, but because silence is no longer uncomfortable. You no longer enter arguments that don't matter. Not out of fear, but clarity. Your attention becomes something you protect, not something that gets pulled away. And over time, life becomes quieter. Not empty. Controlled. No explanation needed. No performance required. No reaction necessary. And people still feel it. Because you didn't become someone new. You simply stopped becoming who you were before. And in that silence, you didn't lose yourself. You finally stopped abandoning yourself.